but also Anna, to answer your question of.
In this workshop meeting, Planning Commission is going to begin. We have comments, administrative comments from Karen Nelson as the first item on the agenda.
Okay, and just for the record, we have a quorum because we have James, Anna, Bill,
Keith.
and Keith,
And Steve.
and Steve, even though he's not there right now, correct? We just see his screen. So for him to open the meeting. Okay. I wanted to address for everybody in attendance that some FOI call. This is a special meeting. The agenda was established as a special meeting posted on the website on Saturday and given to the town clerk on Monday. Special meeting requires that there be no additions to the agenda at the meeting. And I'm pointing out that the meeting did not include and has not included our workshop meetings public comment. So public comment is not part of tonight's meeting, so there will be no public participation. This is a workshop meeting. The participants will be commission members, staff, Janelle and myself, and Gordon Ridgway, who is an ex officio member. We will be muting all other participants, and we are basically taking the chat room off. I have the reason or cause to have some concerns of what I've been seeing the chat room being used, the chat function being used for, and I to Vera Deneen, and I called Tom Hennick from FOI last week in regards to how to better handle meetings in which there appears to be connections between the participants in the chat and what have you. And he basically said that when you're having that sort of thing, it can be construed as public comment and part of it. And that if you're not allowing public comment, as we're not allowing tonight, that we should disable the chat room. So that means that you are all entitled to listen, but you will not be part of the hearing if you, you know, we don't see hand raised or whatever, but as I said, it's a special meeting, will be contained in participation by only commission members, staff, and Gordon Ridgway. So that is what I wanted to address for calling in. I might have to address that again if there's some other folks calling in, but it appears that we have all the ones that I expected. So.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of meeting dates for the coming year, which is required by state statute. We have published them ahead of time. I think you should have all received them. They're basically the second Tuesday of every month throughout the year. That's something familiar with. Do we need a motion to approve these, Karen?
Yes, we do. Maybe we should, at this point in time, if we want to have a special meeting, we can comply with the 35-day deadline, so it could be put on this as a regular meeting, but we would have to establish a different time. So I have had some conversations with some folks, and
You're talking about the special annual meeting, just to clarify.
yes, which is
where all the organizations in together to report on the POCD.
right.
Right.
We did not have one last year. We've had one every year since 2013, with the exception of last year. Normally is a Saturday meeting, and we normally moved it to a room that had greater, you know, capacity. Obviously, this year it will have to be conducted, but I think if we get started on it now, that we can send invitations out and encourage our partners and all interested other parties to share written commentary or to do mini presentations, you know, YouTube small videos of something to address what they're doing if they were limited in time, and we could put that together for a Saturday morning meeting and have all the information up, or people could to the record, but we could really get some input. It's been a very interesting year, and I think it would be a really nice thing to be able to open up.
I agree with, why don't we all think
Social
about this some
services.
more? And can't we make a final decision at the December 12th regular meeting and
We could.
schedule a January meeting?
Yeah, it would be a special meeting, yeah.
Right, okay. So we don't have to set a date tonight. Okay. So how about that motion to accept the meetings as listed? Phil had his hand up.
Is listed.
Keith is seconding. And not everybody is on visual. Could we just have all in favor say aye? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We are now going to start our workshop meeting. And before we begin the detailed discussion, I want to know that I've spoken to Karen and Janelle, and this is what we propose for our December 12th continued public hearing. Propose to continue with the second cut amendment. Janelle has some minor changes that I think that's the concerns that were raised, and it should be possible to bring those to the attention of the public to their satisfaction. So I'm hoping we'll be able to pass that at the public hearing. The second home business amendment will be withdrawn as it is read at the beginning of the continuation of the public hearing. Between now and then, we will have to continue to receive any correspondence that people may want to send us the proposal as it currently stands. But we will withdraw it and begin to work on a new version. Hopefully, we'll have finished that new by our January meeting and can set it for a new public hearing in February. Is there any discussion about this plan?
I just have a question. Karen, we're okay to discuss this at this special meeting, even though it's still technically open as a public hearing?
I think we can address the regulation terms of, for instance, the attainable housing cut, the minor, the fact that some of the changes are not substantial in addressing the business regulations that we know that they are. We do not have, I think we're going to get a fair more amount of correspondence, and I don't think that we should we can discuss them, but not discussing them in the point that we have closed our mind to what we expect to don't hear. It's kind of an interesting thing to be discussing something when we know it's going to be withdrawn, but it's not to say that we aren't going to get more communications the next couple weeks. So I think minor discussion, but then it's going to have to really be reopened when we got a brand new set of regulations.
I don't think you're really answering the question, Karen.
Well, it seems to me that we're actually kind of technically the applicant in this case. The planning and zoning
Right.
is submitting something. So the applicant always, in my opinion, has the ability to withdraw an application, which I think potentially is what we're discussing for the one segment. For the attainable housing piece, obviously, if there's a minor technicality, just from perspective, then I don't see an issue with us solving that if that's what you're proposing.
I also don't see an issue with beginning to work on our new application, knowing, as we all now do, that we intend to withdraw the current application. The problem is that as an inexperienced chair, I wasn't clear on what the appropriate action to take was when at our last public hearing. I think I should have asked for a motion to withdraw at that time. It was clear that we needed to make substantial changes based on public input.
Good idea. Hello.
And I don't really want to be wasting our precious time not figuring out how to fix it. we had a planning workshop meeting set for tonight. And Janelle has prepared an alternative plan that we start working on. If you really feel we can't discuss it legally this evening, I'm just going to set another planning workshop meeting for next.
Well, it's not formally closed. That's the concern I have, is the hearing is technically open. So we're basically discussing an alternative plan that's of substance change for that specific hearing that's still technically open. It can't be posted until that's formally closed.
I think in discussing the fact that we know that changes have to be made, but acknowledging that we know that we are going to be receiving more information in the next month, because people understand that the hearing was continued and they can continue to submit information. So discussing open mind that you have more information coming in, that you are willing to be open to. It's a fine line as to where you want to go.
We're mostly talking about the business one at this point, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
That's precisely what we're talking about. I want any discussion. I don't want to do anything irretrievably wrong.
Is there other things that we can discuss besides that?
No, so well, we have.
I mean, we have a planning meeting. There's all kinds of stuff that we could talk about for our community. Meeting doesn't need to be, a 10-minute meeting because we can't discuss that specific topic.
Well, I don't think any of us have put any thought into what else we could be discussing, unless Janelle is prepared to put up other regulation reformatting or changes that she's been working on.
I mean, I would be happy to make it a productive use of our time. Absolutely.
Well, the one thing seems to keep coming up, and this is we've discussed it quite in detail in some fashion. Still, the question coming up between site plan and special permit requirements, I think, continues to be a topic that is hard for all of us to explain. I know I keep explaining it, and then I get 5 more questions as to why I think we plan as opposed to special permit. And that's something that is kind of broad. It's not just for home-based businesses. It's going to be for lots of us. Special permit for the affordable housing lots that we talked about, that were approved as part of Ginny Potter subdivision. The quality, some of the wording that we have in those areas. So as we move forward,
Karen, let's just move on to discussing the first.
Okay.
The first amendment, the application that we'd like to continue with at our next hearing. Why don't we start with that? And Janelle, I'm going to ask you to put up the changes that you've made.
Sure.
In the course of addressing, the helpments that were made at the public. So.
Absolutely. And this is in an editable version, so I'm ready to edit anything out on the fly.
You should have received this ahead of time, but she's made it very easy for us by putting the changes in red.
Thank you.
No, of course. The one question I do have for the commission that was unclear, and I believe some letters touched upon it, is just how many attainable lots the property owner create, and putting a cap on that very specifically, I think will be really helpful just to make that very clear. Whether it's feasible or not, I think it's important just to say a property owner may create no more than X number of attainable housing lots.
Agree.
Would it be X number, or would it be a number on the size of the lot and the zone that it's in? Right. If I had a 100-acre lot in 1 acre zoning, I just happen to have it.
Mm-hmm.
right? It might be
Yeah.
different than if I had a 10-acre lot in a 5-acre zone.
And honestly, Phil, that's my question for the commission is truly, is it a cap on the number of lots in a specific zone? Let's say, for example, you're a property owner that has multiple lots in multiple parts across town. And you had, you know, a 25-acre lot in one part of town, a 50-acre lot in another part of town, and you wanted to do maybe cumulatively 3. I really being clear on that. That was definitely something that I was remiss on, was just not, I was thinking through as far as additional to a specific lot might be a clean way to do it. So you can create no more than 2 of an existing lot, no more than 1 of an existing property owner's lot. I think just thinking details through.
And if I may, this doesn't actually prohibit that from happening. It's just saying under this provision, you don't have to subdivision regs. If you have a 100-acre lot and you
Sure.
want to,
Right.
So,
Right.
so it's not like it can't happen. And actually, I mean, Jenny Potter's, proposal just showed that that is very possible to go through the process. Seems like everybody was on board and it wasn't that cumbersome. So,
Yeah,
so-
I don't think we want to make it so that this allows you to put that, 100 lots on a 100-acre subdivision without having to go through the, special permit process. Maybe we allow 1, but we, 1 extra one, and then if they want to do more, they could still do it. They just through the regular process like you did before.
Yeah. So that said, I mean, do you want it to be 1? Do you want it to be 2? Do you think 3 is appropriate? That's really the question that I have for all of you.
Well,
I
Jenny
think-
Potter did too.
Yeah,
think-
she went through subdivision.
The safest number is 2 because Ginny has led the charge. Now, if
But
we find
that
in the
was a
future,
special permit too, right? This would all be without a special permit, right?
correct.
Correct. So the lot line modification would be without the subdivision being triggered.
I guess when we first started discussing this, I understood this was 1 additional free split, not that we were going to allow multiple free splits for the purpose of just because it's attainable housing. It's still
Yeah.
available to be able to do splits like Jenny Potter did. You just have to go through the regular subdivision process at that point.
Yeah.
so Keith, you're saying you'd be more comfortable with just 1.
Yeah, 1 additional free split. Yeah.
Right. And then to do multiple, they could subdivide the property first.
Like Ginny did.
If you did, if you did a subdivision and each of them had the potential to have a 1-acre lot split off of it, you could do, essentially 4 lots then.
Well,
But that's fine
No,
because they
that
did the
doesn't-
subdivision
It
first.
doesn't work because it goes back to when zoning went into place. You can't do an additional, the splits go back to when zoning goes into place. So the 19.
But if you did a subdivision first, right? And you sold off a subdivision, is there any reason that the 2 people that own those 2 pieces of land couldn't do a free cut?
Yes, they can't do a free cut under that because
It's
the
been,
cuts are tracked
Because
back
it's
to
been
when.
sub-
been divided.
Yeah.
could I mention something else? One of the things that we've been hearing from Gordon is that there are other people who are very, very interested in doing what Ginny did. And I think we should also consider that given the need in the town for housing that's more affordable for people who are not fabulously wealthy, it might be more appropriate to say that they can have 1 acre, just like she did. She's the precedent.
Yeah, but she did vision, right?
Well, I know,
Anybody
but
can-
that's because this current amendment wasn't yet
Wasn't-
available.
All right,
Well,
fair
from
enough.
Jenny,
I'm not against
And
that.
that subdivision was, I'm sorry, I'm going to let you speak, James. That subdivision was very well received, it seems to me.
Yeah, I agree.
I just have a question about how onerous it is for an applicant to go through the process. For Ginny, was it cumbersome for her? Unfortunately, we can't get that feedback right now, but Karen probably has feedback along those lines. And I just want to see what this is buying us in that sense. If it's super cumbersome and awkward for someone to go through that process, that's gives us pause for thought. But if it's not that big of a deal anyways, then potentially we can stick with the one additional cut, and then if it's more than that, then they go through that process.
With Ginny Potter's property, which was the original Potter property, and many moving and changing around of lot lines and handing property over to relatives and whatever, Peter Eversole finally said it was just much cleaner to go through subdivision than try to ascertain that they were entitled to a second free split, because the title was so convoluted that this was the cleaner process and the faster process to go through. And certain things that they did the subdivision, they weren't required to, for instance, really flag all the wetlands on all 20 acres and whatever. And they did a good bit, but that was Peter Eversole's decision that was the easier, quicker, and faster way to get it done. And that's why they went that quick.
Typically, how much would it have cost Ginny, or a person like that to do what she did?
Lot.
Like 10,000, 20,000?
I can't answer that question. There was a lot. There might have been pro bono work done on the part, because it was, between the Cornwall Housing Corporation, whatever. But subdivision can be very expensive in terms of, wetlands, flaggings, et cetera, for straight standard subdivision. But with this one, they felt that it was actually less costly to go through the subdivision process.
Fair enough, but they're not always going to be like that. So this free cut that we're doing, or this is going to be beneficial. It's going to keep the cost down, property owner. That might not be as lucky as Ginny.
And don't forget, there's also the conservation easement that goes with the subdivision regs and will not go with this second cut reg.
I could give you an example of somebody that has a 50-acre parcel of land and knows they're not entitled to a second cut because there's no regulations. And then the cost of just lopping off one small lot when they have to do the boundary of an entire piece of land and whatever could be very, very costly. Somebody that has a smaller piece of land, it might be less. It really goes case by case.
Okay.
As to
With
cost of what it's gonna be.
with this free attainable housing cut, I use the word free, I know. With the attainable housing cut, don't they still have to verify that there's not wetlands as part of that? Right? There's the same hoops to jump through for the 1 acre.
Well, look at the legally created parcel. It's the third paragraph.
Yeah.
He has in red lands, water courses, and flood hazards.
But only on that one piece that they cut now, not the whole.
Correct.
Not the whole area.
For the parcel that's being split off. They have to be able to put a buildable area in there. It has to be an appropriate lot.
It's just 1 acre. It's not like it's 100 acres. You have to find the wetlands on it.
I see.
That's a lot more energy.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Steve.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I do have a question for Keith. Keith, right, have the wording on-site sanitary systems. From your background, do you think it's better, not to put you on the spot in the heat of the moment, but do you think I should specify well and like water supply and sanitary systems?
I would
Yeah.
put the, well and sanitary system.
So like, say water supply, is that something that that would be substantial?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
editing.
We don't have city water in town, so they have to have.
What
You have to
language are
upload
working in
your
there?
edit. Yeah.
Yeah, this I'm noticing now because I don't work in Word for this. This is
Sanskrit.
not, yeah, this is not very clear right now. So
You're
I'm
going to
gonna-
remember. You're going to remember.
Well, I just want it so everyone can see, but that's a really great insight. That's really helpful for me. So I'll specify now that it says and that can support adequate water supply and sanitary systems. So that's really clear. I'm trying, what I really took from all the feedback is to make it explicitly clear. So things that I understood to be inherent in some of the things and just in the way that I've approached regulations, I'm learning now to really make them crystal clear as can be. So adding a few things here and there. I do want to add, actually, not to jump around too much, but on part C right now, it says each lot designated for attainable housing, so we know some 1 acre in size, be located in a residential zone and be considered a buildable lot. I do want to mention subject to the dimensional requirements of the underlying residential zone, even though it's implied. If I add that in there, I think it might be more clear.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just, I thought I really want to make these as crystal clear as possible. I think we all got so used to reading them and working together that some things that we might have for granted, now I'm realizing I should spell them out. So I'll add that.
Quick question.
Yeah.
It says there, I think I'm trying to read it on my small screen, but
Yeah.
as demonstrated the Torrington Area Health Department, do we say something as that they need approval of Torrington Area Health Department or something rather than just demonstrate them?
I was just rereading that myself, and my thought for that, thank you for thinking of you, honestly, to say as required,
Right.
instead of as demonstrated, to truly just say as required. So
Bye.
it's like it's something that's necessary rather than that you just demonstrated it. Do you think that's a better word choice?
Required or approved.
Yeah,
as
maybe as approved by the
Yeah.
Torrington Area Department.
And then
And actually, do we want to specify just the health district or, I mean,
I struggle with that. Do you want to make it less proper and just as approved by the health district?
Why does it make a difference?
Because Torrington Area Health is no longer with us, and it's another health district.
Oh, if they split up in some way?
Yeah.
Well, then local health district, please. We could get a health district from Eastern Connecticut approving our subdivision.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
And then there's just one other smithing thing that I was hoping to do, and hopefully it's considered simple. I was just reading the attainable housing definition again, and it's just a little awkward. It reads housing intended for those with an income limit limited to. I was hoping to just get rid of limit.
Yeah.
So it just says limited to 100%, and instead of whereby, to just simply have it say where the resident spends.
Okay.
The resident spends no more.
That's nicer.
Just to clean it up. And then, I mean, the final question is honestly just the limitation of the number of lots to create.
I want Gordon to come in on this, since I cited him as my reason for wanting to have a higher limit than one. You have anything to add, Gordon?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know in other places, other times we've had 2 or 3 lots, 5 lots housing, and I just think it's such a Herculean task to try to get these things. I'd hate to have it limited to less than 3, but that's just my perspective. I mean, as long as they meet the health district, I don't have a problem with 3.
I tend to agree with you.
I guess my only question is, what kind of feedback are we going to get from the town also? If we're taking residential zones that are 3 and 5 acre especially, and essentially making them into a bunch of 1 acre zones.
Good point.
Yeah, so if we have, somebody has a 3-acre parcel and wants to split it into 3 1-acre, lots in a 3-acre zone, we may get some feedback from the neighbors that they're really thrilled about that.
So with a subdivision, that's automatic special permit?
Under the subdivision regulations?
Yeah, all subdivisions have to go to special permit?
Right now, the parcel lots that were created by Ginny Potter were a special permit as part of a subdivision.
But that's
So-
because they were below the zoned acreage? Is that right?
No,
Why was it a special permit as opposed to?
because the current regulations under 826 allows subdivision with lots by town owner nonprofit in a subdivision as long as they exceed 1 acre and have certain requirements for wetlands and watercourses. That's how many of the parcel lots like Lake Street, the Prud'hommes were created.
Yep.
Through
You're
subdivision.
still not explaining the special permit.
Because regulation existed as part of a subdivision, as opposed to this being not part of this is for somebody not going through subdivision.
So right now with a special permit, with a special permit, you could take a 3-acre lot and turn it into 2 lots that you donate to Cornwall Housing Corporation and keep one as a house property?
No, if you were in a 3-acre zone, you can't make it into 3 1-acre lots.
Could we if we enacted this?
I thought there's language in it that this came up before, are to legally created parcel to contain to satisfy minimal additional requirements.
On 825 on our regs, that we got town or nonprofit sponsored affordable housing, multifamily housing. And that says the purpose of this special permit is to provide the opportunity for town sponsored affordable multiple suitable locations. So that comes under special permit.
That's just what I was looking up. Okay.
And then 826 is the purpose of this special permit is to provide the opportunity for town or nonprofit sponsored for housing, single family housing lots in suitable locations. And that's where it spells out that they can be minimum lot size of 1 acre with applicable buildable area. They waive that.
Right.
But the original lot would still have to, I guess the original house, take a 5-acre lot in a 3-acre zone and make 2 affordable housing lots and have a 3-acre zone house.
That's, yeah.
So you couldn't do a 3-acre, but you could do a 5-acre into 3 houses. In a 3-acre zone.
In a 3-acre zone.
I'm still not positive that that's a limit.
See, I'm not either. That's mostly what I'm trying to.
It says a town or nonprofit sponsored lot may be established in an R3 or R5 residential zone only, subject to the approval of the Torrington Area Health District and requirements of Article 4 of these regulations, with the following exceptions: minimum lot size 1 acre. The limit on the number of lots on shared drives or private streets may be increased by 1, where one of these lots is a town or nonprofit sponsored lot. But it doesn't say that you can't 3 of them in an R3 zone.
Well, would you make all 3 subdivisions? So there would be no original house. There'd just be 3 subdivisions.
Right? You'd create 3
Or
affordable
three
housing lots.
lots.
Yes, if you had a piece of land without an original house on it, you could,
Sure.
split it into.
Right.
There's lots of those.
Which is sort of taking a 3-acre zone and turning it into a 1-acre zoning, which I'm thinking that some people may have a problem with.
Well, this is under special permit. So this is currently
Right.
under our special permit that you would,
Right, but I
Go
guess
through
the
the
question
process.
is, if we open this up with this by adding it, making it 3 lots, we're taking it out of the special permit.
Correct. And, yeah, good,
Well,
you're all
so-
making excellent points.
So, I mean, I think that I would be more inclined to, I think I'd want to have one lot, so one of the properties in the lot be whatever the underlying zone size is,
Conforming.
Conforming.
a conforming lot.
We,
And then, so if you have a 3-acre zoning, of a 5-acre lot, you could cut off two affordable housing or attainable housing lots and have one 3-acre for the original zone
just like Jenny
area,
did.
conforming lot, one conforming lot and 2 affordable housing lots. Provided you can have all the other requirements, driveways and septic and well and everything else. But I think that we shouldn't make it so you can take I think we'll have a lot more pushback if we take a 3-acre zone and make it possible to have 3 1-acre lots.
I think the
Essentially-
thing is though, that we already allowed that, we've already done that. And I think we also, the commission in the biggest sense, should be thinking about the fact that we have predominantly 3 and 5-acre zones. We're probably the only town that does that. In fact, from what we've learned this summer, only a quarter of the towns have over 2-acre zoning in the state of Connecticut. And here we are, predominantly 3 and 5-acre. Not that everybody doesn't. People, if you ask the poll, they probably like that. But it's an anomaly, which probably is not legally supportable or necessarily from a planning standpoint desirable. On Pierce Lane, we had 11 acres. We split that into 5 lots, average lot size for 2 acres. There was some neighborhood pushback. There was neighborhood pushback up on Town Street when we did the first parcel program. We had 1 lot, where someone is now just a little farther up Town Street from Denny Potter. Lawsuits threatened and all sorts of performance. But the commission at the time, probably years ago, went ahead with it. And it's been success. So I guess my only concern is I don't think we want to slide back any more than we are right now, which we would if we would require a lot to be under the underlying zone, because we've seen on Pierce Lane where that's worked out. I bet if people didn't tell you those are affordable lots, that people would know those are affordable lots. And I don't think we want to take away any more than we have right now by the underlying lots 3 and 5 acres. If you want to limit the free cut without the special permit to 1 or 2 lots, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But again, I think if you look at the reality of how often this is going to happen, I would hate to curb the generosity of people by making them sell for 1 where they may have done 2.
Gordon, don't get me wrong. I'm totally for making more affordable housing. I'm just trying to hedge off conversations that are kind of come back up when we have a public hearing.
Well, that's true, but I think also the commission has to have some backbone in saying this is something that has to happen in town. And there hasn't been a project, whether it's been a school addition, a town beach care center, or a affordable housing project that hasn't had community pushback. And that is, in my mind, a weakness of the public hearing, because someone's going to object to whatever you're going to do, regardless of how beneficial it is to the overall health of the community. Not that you shouldn't have public input, but you have to balance that with the greater needs of the community.
Yeah.
Could
if I
I
may.
recommend a compromise then? Could we consider making the housing cut up to 2 lots and then change our special permit requirement for any, that people would have to go to special for anything more than 2?
I could agree with that.
I am going to add the caveat because I did speak to Mally and to the assessor Barbara Vigos about this regulation, and it was Matt Cooley's explicit wishes that this regulation not change the fact that the original lot become non-conforming. So going back to if you have an 8-acre lot and you cut 2 1-acre lots off, you still have at least 5 acres of the underlying zone. That is what Mad Cooley said she wanted to see this maintained. And Barbara Bigo said that if you made the original lot non-conforming, it violated what even an assessor was told they could or could not do.
Not to mention statutory requirements with conformity as well. It's understood when I wrote this and when I read it that the resulting lot or the home lot needs to be conforming to the standards of the underlying zone. But if it needs to be explicitly stated, it can
I
be.
think that would
fix the whole problem. That'll fix the whole problem. And in that case, we could go up to 3. Wouldn't drive James crazy.
I suggest that we don't change the original special permit process for this, because I think that allows more flexibility. And I like the fact that if you're going to have a bunch of flexibility with something that's complicated and maybe larger in scope, like the Pierce Lane project, should have public input. I'm not saying the commission doesn't get, backbone, as Gordon says, and actually still approve it, but we want public's input with things that are of that scale and nature. But something like this, where it's just a one-off or an easy, you don't have to go through the subdivision process, it's not a special permit process, then it really should be in keeping and in scale with something that doesn't require a lot of public input in order for us to pass it. So I'd be more comfortable with keeping the number of lots lower in this circumstance. And then, if you have a larger
Would you go for
project,
2, James?
then what's that?
Would you
Sure.
compromise for 2?
Sure, 1 or 2. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I'd probably be okay with 2. I'm kind of in that same 1 to 2. I agree with James, sentiments exactly that, on the bigger stuff, we want to have some kind of input,
Okay.
but on the,
Yeah, and I think that's prudent. What about you, Steve?
It would be,
Still there?
yes, so it'd be 2 lots and the original one would have to stay conforming.
Right.
And if they wanted to do more than 2, they'd have to go for a special permit. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not clear to me that our current special permit would even allow them to go for more than 1.
Okay, so then just,
That's what Jenny just did.
Okay, you're right.
yeah, it's true. So
Yeah.
that sounds,
The current regulation does not specify a limit on the number of lots.
That's how
that sounds fair. It sounds like it's an easy 2 affordable housing lots if someone's willing to donate them to the housing commission.
That way, the feared 3-acre lot subdivision isn't going to happen.
Fair enough.
It has to be people with excess acreage that they afford to split this off and still be conforming. Makes perfect sense to me.
That's what Mad Cooley expressed to me.
So
That's
Just-
what the Housing Corporation wanted to see, because I think she felt it put them at risk for the appearance of spending all the rules. And they didn't want to go down that road.
So
To touch on that too, Karen, I had that very same conversation with Maggie.
do we need to be clear about that? Does Janelle need to put that in, that the original lot must be a conforming lot?
So I just quickly did an D. Is it legible, and is that the word choice that you're hoping for?
Sorry.
Sure.
I was looking at the original that you sent out.
It's
Sorry.
not, knock it in, fine. I'll put, just Karen, for housekeeping purposes, is it helpful to you if I leave the changes in red for the purposes of the public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
will
then,
do.
oh, sorry, hold on.
No, it's okay.
A little confused reading, because a lot of it reads like there's only going to be the 1 lot. And
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I hear you.
Well-
I'm glad you're saying that.
So I don't know if we want to do that now, or if that's something you want to do on your.
So you're going to say the creation of the lot and put S in parentheses under attainable housing cut.
Right.
Great. Thank you, guys.
I think, Janelle, the question I had is, do we need to spell out the fact in here that the original lot, or did you do it? And I just don't
Did
see
it.
I hope I did it in
Second
D. If that's,
column D, just above
Oh,
E.
never mind. Got it. I
Yeah,
just find
I
the right place on the page. I'm looking.
it's okay. It's okay. This is getting messy. I will clean it up. I will reformat it
Oh,
for the hearing.
One more piece of input. For A, there, it says a property owner may create no more than 2 additional lots for the attainable housing from a tract of land. Is that need, should it say without going to special permit or something like that? Because it almost seems like we're then limiting.
Good
Yeah, you're right.
point.
So just for my clarity, so a property owner may create no more than 2 additional lots for attainable housing from a tract of land.
Under this,
Yeah,
Without-
or without special permit approval or something like that, or,
Under this provision, I think.
yeah.
Does that clear?
It's almost like you want to have a footnote in here that says if more than 2 additional lots, you need to go through the subdivision
yeah,
process
or
the special
C,
permit process.
26 or something.
Yeah.
Just to point them in the right place. If reading this, you
Yeah.
want to point them in the right place if they want to do more than 2.
So-
Yeah, you don't want somebody to read through that and think, oh, I can only do 2, that they don't have any options to do more, but.
And then what if I just do after this a star, and then I include at the bottom of the like
A footnote.
for the creation of 3 or more, please see Cornwall subdivision, and then quote that there.
The special permit, right?
You're
Great.
both in
Sounds
section.
good to me.
Yeah, I promise this will look better before showtime. Great.
Do we have consensus now? I sense we do. I so appreciate how well everybody's working together. Ultimately, what we produce is the best possible. Between the tugging and the pulling and the ideas, it's a fantastic team we have right now, in my opinion.
It's the leadership.
Stop it. Are these changes of such a nature that we think that we can put them forward at a public hearing? Continuation of the public hearing.
So here's my question to that. Did we address, are there cuts that we didn't address in this that we feel like were stumbling blocks that we wanted? I can't remember everything we wanted.
Well,
Never-
we've covered the discussion, the actual discussion at the public hearing.
Okay.
I don't know about the letters.
I guess the question also remains, are the changes we're making still considered minor changes, or would they be major enough that it needs to be resubmitted versus just
That's my
change?
question. That's my question.
I think, personally, I think they clarify some of the vagueness. I think that when it came up about somebody being able to put 100 1-acre lots, on a 100-acre tract of land, and that we had 2 people that said that's how they interpret the regulations. You've cleaned that up. That was really the biggest issue that was raised during the hearing, was the feeling that somebody was going to abuse this because the language wasn't concise, and now the language is concise.
Okay.
Clear. Yeah.
I think as far as the affordable housing, right, I think we had almost like 99% of the support from the people that were at that hearing. It was the commercial one they had a problem. I don't know, am I wrong on that? I thought everybody liked
Well,
this.
there was discussion about these points that we're talking about now.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with Keith that it may be that I don't have enough experience to know for sure, but it strikes me that there are residents in Cornwall who might complain that they weren't given enough time to consider the changes in wording.
I also don't think the changes that we made are, they're mostly clarifying the intent of what we had originally and not necessarily changing dramatically what we're trying to do.
Shall we agree to run it by the public hearing? And if we start to feel a sentiment at the public hearing that people are upset with us, that as chair, I could then make a decision that we I don't know, what would we do? If,
You would rescind it and resubmit it.
okay. So, we'll all be there. You'll all have a chance to share with that sense of the meeting. Is that an acceptable way to deal with it?
I'm okay with that.
Well,
I think we can explain ourselves. We're taking some clarification on the input. This is still in essence the same regulation that we're discussing. It's just that we clarified
Right.
some.
And we can then, since we're not going to be discussing the other application, we can give them a few minutes to read it, can't we?
yes.
Yeah. And it'd be posted before too.
And,
so.
and we can actually, we don't have to vote on this or close the public, we can continue the public hearing
Mhm.
if
I don't know.
necessary. Yeah. So-
Karen's on another tangent.
No, I'm looking for the two pieces of correspondence that,
Oh,
Pertain to this.
the two tweaky ones from David Colbert have been addressed by this. And the other that was in a letter, I think, from Caroline Nastro was, I think, based on the fact that a lot of people do not realize that the statute that talks about first cuts and whatever, that there are other similar, that the planning commissions, not just Cornwall, but other towns have found a way to create regulations for free splits, free cuts and whatever that have been upheld by law, in that they are based on providing affordable housing for estate planning and whatever. And she was saying, no, it's just not allowed. But we've seen that it is allowed, and it is in other regs in the same fashion legally for what this commission is trying to do.
well, yeah, but for people to take a stand on whether something's legal or not, I think they have to be in that profession. And so,
I'm good with the plan that. Sorry.
Disney ringtone?
Embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm good with the plan that we have of taking this back to continuing the public hearing that we already have open for this one, and explaining the changes that we made that were are in order to clarify the positions that we were intending to have. And then, obviously we're going to vote to pull back the other one.
Yeah.
And then if it's going sideways, can either, I think it's,
we can do the same. We can then, we can just.
Before we decide to continue this time, though, we should decide to pull it back.
We'll also be, with only concentrating on one public hearing, we'll be more prepared to sell this one and explain why we thought what we thought, and through.
I love it.
And I was remiss at last public hearing, honestly, preparing a presentation. So I developed a memo that just the background of where this is coming from. So it has, there is reason. So it's from the POCD. There are task items for the Planning and Zoning Commission that came directly from the POCD. So I have that with the pages reference and the statutes reference prepared. I got really comfortable working with you guys as a group and wasn't quite for the public hearing. So I'll have that.
Yeah, and we should probably refrain from acronyms, because nobody knows what they mean.
Oh yeah. Plan of conservation development. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good point, Steve.
Janelle, do you want to reference 8.26 for you on your asterisk?
Plans to.
Down
After
here,
dark.
Yeah, 826.
826. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you so
That's
much.
town or nonprofit spot.
And just to be clear, James, you were reading directly from the subdivision regulations this
Yes,
evening?
he is.
It's actually,
In front of me.
yeah, it's not our it's our special permit regs.
Yeah,
That's the
8-26 special.
8-26 is our special permit regs, and that's what references our town and non.
Instead of subdivision, it's special permit.
Yeah.
Great.
It's like a subdivision where you need a special permit for shared ways. And in this application that was brought forth, you needed the special permit for the creation of the two smaller lots for the greater subdivision that satisfied open space, et cetera, et cetera. And I think when Peter Eversole and Ken Harika addressed that, they showed how it also, everything complied with the subdivision regulations as well, which made it easier. The special permit was the two small lots, but with all sorts of open space set aside, all of that sort of stuff. So it satisfied the concerns and really is meant for development of a larger tract of land than Ginny's was a very basic, her house, two wing lots to the side, an open space, end of conversation. Didn't require, it's easy land to get to and what have you. So it was a different animal in terms of what she's proposing.
So what else are we going to talk about?
Karen,
What time is it? I can't see a clock.
It's 7:57.
Well, I see, I drank something with caffeine in it late today so that I have energy. So I'm going to tell you all I'm too tired to carry on. What do you want to talk? Karen, Mike, what do you want to talk about? You talk.
What time I've been up, so we won't even go there.
Karen, were you concerned about site plan versus special permit?
Just all I'm saying is that in preparation for another round of the home-based business regulations, I think we all have to get more comfortable with the between site plan approval and special permit.
Well, it's one of the strengths of Janelle's new rewrite of our regs. She, if I recall correctly, she makes that distinction quite clearly.
But I guess we have to all be able to explain it.
Yeah.
And feel comfortable with it. I think that whole piece of.
Well, let's make some language clearer. If you have a special permit application, you have to submit a site plan and a narrative, notify your neighbors. There's a list of requirements. The site plan is part of both pieces. Some zoning permits where you get the permit without a special permit, you just get it by providing a site plan, correct? Yeah, so this is the hierarchy of zoning in Cornwall.
Current zoning, yeah.
And there are some things that don't require even a zoning permit because they're by right. Give me an example.
Agriculture.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah.
My only thought on this whole home ownership thing too is I think we should sort of acknowledge 2020 that a lot of people are working from home. So the home is in fact a place of employment as much as it is a residence. And not that we want to upset the apple cart, but I think that should be acknowledged that a lot of people out of their houses don't even need to bother themselves or the commission with their application.
Correct.
So just something in there saying that's the nature of work. It's not strictly residential because some people are working out of the house, and that's life now. I think that makes it easier to accept this than that these are sacrosanct residential zones only, because that's not our reality.
Well,
and
Hang on.
Janelle,
yeah,
Go down
go
this
that
path.
story.
I don't think we should talk about that specific reg tonight.
I agree with James. That's,
Yeah,
that's a very complicated topic.
We can't open this up. It's not on our formal agenda for this meeting, and we got a public hearing that's open for that.
We'll have a complicated discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The workshop meeting says regulatory change, James.
Yeah, but that's a specific open, we got.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We're staying
I
away
just
from
don't, it's not like I don't want to talk about it, but I just don't want to get pinched down the road by technicality or, let's do this right.
Okay, that's fine.
I had one more question. Maybe Janelle can answer about the affordable housing cut. By using the word cut versus subdivision, are we not referencing the subdivision definition in our regulations that put it back to the 1954 date and everything else? Are we opening up that somebody could then cut and then cut again by calling it cut versus, I don't know, maybe it's nothing, but
Your concern is around the word cut without,
versus, I don't think we reference it as a subdivision anywhere in this.
so Jerry read.
So at that point, would it be the Cornwall housing, like, for example, somebody cut off 2 acres, 3 acres for an affordable housing piece because they decided to cut off 3 acres. At that point, it would be owned by one of the nonprofits or the town. Are you then saying that the town could then recut that into 2 1.5 acre?
That's my worry, yeah, that whether if we, as a subdivision, because a subdivision puts that cutoff date that it has to, that the free cut is kind of after that, you can only have one to that 1954 date.
So I think, Keith, I understand your question. Does it reassure you the fact that when this cut, the existing cut is done, the housing lots intended for attainable housing need to be designated on the town records and need to be designated an actual map that gets recorded? So be it in this case 1 or 2, it's very clearly stating that the lots are restricted attainable housing use and to be developed by the town of Cornwall or by a nonprofit. Is that answering your question? I'm not sure I'm wholly clear.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying. I'm just thinking it through.
Now, would it
you can get more cuts out of it in the future?
Would it help the fact that I intend to put the definition of subdivision within the regulation, the definition section?
Yeah, I was looking at our old regulations, and there is that definition of subdivision. But the cut, and we don't call this a subdivision. So that's why it's not defined then that a cut is a subdivision.
Is there a definition of cut?
Sorry.
Is there a definition of cut?
It's not just called first cut, it's a free split. There's so many more in the statutes. I think it's called a first.
It's a first cut and a free cut statute.
Yeah.
So the reason why, and maybe Keith, it goes down to the terminology, like using the word cut versus subdivision, because it is administrative rather than being a subdivision as far as the approval process goes.
I was wondering if we need somewhere that it, dates back to that 1954 time, just like in our definition, the subdivision states that. Do we need to state that again under cut, or I don't know, maybe we don't.
It's inherent in regulations if you are creating a legal lot. But again, where I got myself into trouble was having that things were like not explicitly written. So
yeah, that's the only reason I'm bringing it up, because I understand.
I'm glad you are.
We both do every day though, so
yeah,
that's.
I know. So I do take it for granted, because my understanding is that that's inherent in the nature of any lot / cut subdivision.
So for clarification, how could we get in trouble with that situation? What are you thinking?
I'm just wondering, you know, we define subdivision
Yeah,
in our regs with the definition that, you know, it's one split, that they're allowed to have that split after the 1954 date and everything.
How
just wondering,
about,
we need to define that again or something? I don't know.
situation, say somebody has a tract of land, they decide to do these cuts, whatever they call them, a subdivision or a cut, and they end up with a 1 acre parcel that's affordable housing. It still has to be registered with the town and it's on some map, or is that, Karen, is that right?
Well, I was going to point something too. In the statutes, a lot line adjustment or first cut is basically as of right, that you can do it.
by permit?
And in many instances, people don't even come to a planning and zoning commission to do it because their lawyer says the planning and zoning commission has no authority to deny a first cut.
Why don't we change the title?
So,
Sorry.
so I think we're forgetting the fact that many people are going to get stopped at the door when they find out that they can't transfer what they created because they can't use it's like lopping off 2 acres of wetlands as your first cut in a 2 acre zone and then finding out that you can't get one approval to build on it. You can go and ask a question, or you didn't have a lawyer that said, where did you come up with this idea? You have, your first cut has to, that it can be buildable and that the remaining land is buildable.
Let's
And
change
the
the
lawyers
name.
stopped at the door.
Let's consider changing the name from attainable housing cut to second cut for attainable housing. Does that fix it?
It's still a cut, and it's whether it's the first or the second.
It doesn't matter.
You know, I think in general, as long as I think our bases are covered, they still have to come before you, even with a lot line adjustment. It's still an administrative task that's registered with the town, and you know the town clerk registers the fact that you've done something, and the Mylars are changed or whatever happens. So this would be the same thing. You still have to come before the town. Whether you have a special permit or not is irrelevant of the fact that you're still creating a lot, and that lot is only created through an administrative action that the town's going to do. And whether it's a subdivision or a first cut or whatever it is, you end up with this lot, and at some size, you can't further cut a 1 acre lot into 2 other 1 acre lots. So it's not like you can do it again. And if they end up with 3 lot or a 3 acre lot, and they can still further prove that they want to do more affordable housing and cut it off again, then they still can do that, right?
That would be part of the limit of 2, right?
Correct.
I think we're all forgetting the piece, and this isn't just an aside. People call me up and want me to determine that they're entitled to a first cut. And I can't do it because I lack, I'm not a title searcher, and I'm not a lawyer, and have no capacity to transfer the land. And if it gets stopped at the bank level, checks and balances for people doing the wrong thing, because you're going to get so far and then not go any further.
Real quick, Keith just had to put the definition of subdivision in this section. Does that satisfy your concern?
Yeah, that might help. You know, I like I said, I understand it. You understand it. I just want to make sure that the public, when they're reading this, is going to understand.
Yeah, I remember the first edition, when we called it second free cut, had the definition of subdivision, and I can pull the definition of subdivision back here. If that isn't a change, I would use the existing definition of subdivision that's in the existing regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if we need, you know, I don't know. I don't want to be repetitive and make this bigger than it needs to be either, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking through. I certainly do. And Karen said there are safeguards in place. That's, maybe I'm naive, but sometimes I think like, oh, people, you know, will do the right thing. They'll ask the questions, they'll find out, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I suspect that in general, it's better to be more specific when you can be.
Yeah, that's what I've learned.
And we really don't have a clear definition of subdivision in our definitions, which are really light and need a lot of help. It's better to have it, and then if we have to, we can move it around and have it in more than one place, as long as we have it in at least one place.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Existing one does have it. I did see it in there. I was just looking at it a minute ago. And our existing one does have the subdivision defined, you know.
Not, I don't think as clearly as it could be.
Would that get confusing that people then think that this has to go through a subdivision?
That's the problem with that word, yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know if we want to open that can of worms.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
that's the whole point of this thing is you don't have to go through a subdivision.
and just to James's point, because we're referencing subdivision at the bottom where we're saying revision, and then like, should a property owner make more than one cut, they'd be subject to subdivision regulations. Making reference to them with this section, does that help?
Uh-oh, sound problems.
Don't there's, I think that this discussion doesn't matter as much, because if we're limiting it to 2 cuts, right? But they split off a 3-acre cut and then want to cut that into two cuts. It's still only the second of the 2 cuts. If they're trying to make a third one out of it, then it's going to have to go to a special permit anyway. You
I
can't
guess
just-
my question or problem would be, okay, if you've got, if you do a subdivision, a regular subdivision property into, you know, 100-acre lots subdivided into 2 50-acre lots, and then each of those 50-acre lots wants to give up 2 affordable housing lots, is that allowed? Because in the subdivision regulations, it all dates back to 1954.
Yes, it would be allowed. Under this new provision, you could certainly do, you don't have to go through subdivision regs. You're
Right, so you'd be able
entitled.
to you'd really be able to make 4 then lots instead of 2 without ever having to go, because you'd split the 100 acres into 2, and then you made
Yeah.
4.
Which is
Four
still the
times.
intent of our, it's not like that's a problem. Say some, you know, a lot of our acreage has been resetted and re-subdivided, and somebody ends up with a 10-acre lot and they want to put an affordable housing lot on it.
Right.
And that's their, with this process, so be it.
Right.
I guess that just goes against the first split regulation, you know, the idea that this is like an extension of that first split, because that first split is only allowed once on that piece of property.
That's the 50-acre split.
Right.
Yeah, that's why this, I think we're confusing the matter, thinking that this is one of the free attainable cuts. This is it's just for attainable housing, and it's independent of if you've subdivided your property previously. It's basically you have some existing, whether that was an original lot or it's been created last year. And if it meets a requirement and you want to put an affordable unit on it, then you don't have to go through the subdivision process in order to do that.
I guess my thought would be, okay, if I have 100 acres, I split them into 5-acre lots, and then take each of those 5-acre lots and give 2 affordable housing out of each of those 5-acre lots. I've now created 200, or, you know, or 100, you know.
But you're the owner of each of the lots.
Well, it wouldn't matter, right? You could sell off the lots and the people that bought the lots could then
Right.
be attainable.
Right, but
Yep.
yeah,
This provision would allow that.
Right, that's my,
They
that's
all
my,
have to be
we want on that, I guess.
Now, knowing Cornwall, you'd be hard pressed to take a 100-acre lot and turn it into a bunch of 5-acre lots and still be able to build all 3.
you're not going to find buildable areas.
Yeah, you're not going to find buildable areas on the 3-acre lot that's conforming and 2 1-acre lots
Probably also not going to be profitable for you if you're doing attainable housing. I mean, right.
Right. I mean, the only money you're gonna make is off the, addition, the lot that you built a house on.
I don't expect that every regulation protect us from
Yeah.
every
it's not going
potential
to. We're in
action. And we really have to look at what is more or less likely to happen. Keith, you obviously would make an excellent nefarious consultant for people with horrible ideas.
But Gordon brought up a very interesting point though before, when he said that Cornwall is one of the few towns that has the really large acre zoning. Your 5 acre, your 3 acre, where most towns are 2 acre, some, 1, 2, 3 acres. So if you're really trying to get attainable housing and get small lots for small housing, instead of going through all of this, would it just be easier to go back to what every other town has, 2 and 3 acre zoning, throw the 5 acre out as being exclusionary?
No.
Sell
No.
that to the town.
That pushback.
I don't
Karen,
think,
That's what I'm saying.
Karen, I had a hard enough meeting last public hearing. You want me to go before?
Yeah, come on.
What Gordon brought up is to try to get,
I think the rest of the state should
I mean,
follow Cornwall's example.
Yeah.
and do a
Well,
5
Even
acre
Gordon
zoning.
didn't bring that. Even
But
Gordon
in
didn't
all-
suggest that.
Gordon would agree with that.
But in all seriousness,
Everybody
there's a really good study. It actually just came out today. It's worth a read. I just skimmed through it. Economic impact of land regulations, and it's just it's interesting. It's in light of COVID. It's in light of large lot zoning. It's very interesting to read.
Share that with us, would you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so because it gives a lot of background for what Gordon brought up this evening with housing and how being a big driver of economic development in the state that the state will be in due to COVID, and just thinking through economic development for the term. So it's a really interesting read about land use regulations. It does provide a little bit of a new perspective, especially with COVID. So I'll send it to the chair and to Karen, and I'll have them disperse from there. But I think it's important to think through the economic implications of land use decisions long term.
Thank you. I am shortly going to ask for a motion to adjourn. I do want to ask you all, if we have our regular meeting on December 8th, the second Tuesday of December, that's our continued public hearing. And then we are hoping that in our jury hearing, we will have produced a new home business amendment that we can set for public hearing. We are going to need to have a planning meeting in between. And the way we've been doing, Tuesday, on the middle puts it on December 22nd, which sounds like a horrible day.
well, the 29th too, because there's 3 weeks in between meetings for second Tuesdays.
Okay.
The 26th, is that Phil?
The 29th, it's either the 22nd or there's actually 3 weeks between the second Tuesdays.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong month. Gotcha. Yeah, December.
Actually, there's 4 complete weeks in between the second Tuesday.
All right. I mean, I think personally, most of us would be much better off with the meeting on the 29th.
I'd rather do the 29th than the
Could
20th.
we do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Get that regulation up and
What regulation?
the home business regulation.
A prospective new home business?
A new prospective home business reg. We may not get it finished in one planning meeting, but my goal, a public hearing in February. That seems to be the earliest we could manage it. So let's try.
Okay. Madam Chair, is it possible those workshop meetings at 6:30, or is that not feasible?
I personally have no problem. Who else?
Okay.
Oh.
Earlier.
Yeah.
better for me.
Keith?
I can do it.
I could do 6:30,
Is
not
that-
any earlier. But 6:30
Is
would
that
be
too
okay.
tight for you though?
No, that'd be okay, I think.
That's the week between Christmas and New Year's anyway.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
right. Okay, at 6:30. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Third.
All in favor? Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Everybody be healthy.
Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Bye-bye.